verse of the day is Luke chapter 9, verse 23, which says, "Then he said to them all, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me.'"
Welcome to Cell Life Church Live. Thank you for joining us as we share an inspirational message that is relevant to life today.
Hi there.
Hi.
And thanks for joining us for another webcast of Cell Life Church Live.
Yeah, welcome.
We know that your time is valuable, and we hope you will find the next few minutes with us encouraging and insightful.
Yeah.
This is Memorial Day weekend here in the
Happy
United
Memorial Day.
States. Yes. It is a weekend that we remember all of the brave men and women who gave their lives in the service of our nation and for freedom around the world. So we'd like to invite you to take a moment sometime this weekend and reflect on the sacrifice that was made.
Yeah, and it's very near and dear to my heart, Memorial Day is. I myself am honored. I'll be the chaplain at a Memorial Day celebration tomorrow, sponsored by our local American Legion post number 34. And we're going to be at Columbia Memorial Garden Cemetery in Pasco, Washington. If you're in the area, it'd be great to see you there. The Memorial Day celebration there starts at 1 p.m. local time, that's Pacific, there in Pasco. And it's always a great time. There's always a great crowd. We've got a great featured speaker coming, and it's an honor to be part of the American Legion Post Honor Guard that's going to be there as well. So please, if you're in Pasco, Washington, or the Tri-Cities area, you're more than welcome to come. Love to see you. We're introducing something of a new series today, and we're calling it Jesus Said What? What? Yeah, exactly, because there's the picture in my head whenever I say that is when you talk to a Labrador Retriever. We're Labrador Retriever people, and you just have to love labs. And when you talk to a lab, and a lot of dogs, they just kind of get this,
Yeah, their ears
kind of, their ears perk and they cock their head over, kind of thing, like, huh? Well, sometimes we're reading some of what Jesus said in the Bible, and we kind of get this, huh? What? And what we're doing is we're looking at some of the things that Jesus said when he was preaching and teaching, and also some of the things he said to the religious leaders of the day, which can be kind of fun. We're taking those things and looking into what he really meant by what he was saying.
It's similar to a small group discussion series that we once did, and you can find it free on our website at celllifechurch.org, and it's called The Controversial Statements of Jesus.
Yeah, and it was a really fun discussion series to put together. I think there's 7 or 8 videos and downloadable discussion handout sheets, and so you can grab them for your small group, and it's all free right on our website there.
Jesus said many things when he was preaching and teaching. Some things he said to very large crowds, and some things he said just to individual people, but other times he spoke just to the disciples.
Yeah.
Jesus had a way of simplifying a thought so that a child could understand it.
I wish some of our preacher brethren could do the very same thing.
Our college professors.
Our college professors.
He also had a way to say things in such a way that people would not understand, whether it was just too simple to be true or too difficult or painful. It was hard saying. Yeah,
it was a hard saying. And, this week we want to look at something Jesus said as he was teaching. And it's important to note what is going on in the ministry at this point. And we're talking about take up your cross. Jesus had finished preaching and teaching to over 5,000 people and miraculously fed them with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And that's an awesome miracle you can read. And then he left there. That just happened. And then he left there with his disciples, just the disciples. And he started talking with them privately. So it's just Jesus and the disciples at this point.
And during this time, he asked who people said he was. And then he specifically asked Peter, who he thought Jesus was. And Peter answered very wisely and full of the Spirit when he said Jesus was the Christ, the Son of God. And because of that answer, Jesus praised him for it. Then Jesus started teaching the disciples. Let's read Luke chapter 9, verse 23. This is what Jesus said to them. "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me."
you know, that's a very interesting thing to say.
He's saying this to his disciples.
He's saying
as
it
if
to his
you
disciples.
want to be my
right.
disciples.
Right, exactly. You know, the disciples had been with him for some time now, and were already following him.
Right.
This isn't the very beginning of his ministry time. They've been following him for a while, and now all of a sudden he's saying this, and you know, they were already relying on the Lord for their daily needs, like food, water, and shelter as they traveled. And if you look at the timeline, he'd already sent out the 70 at one point, and they'd come back. He'd already sent out the 12, and they'd come back. And so, you know, they'd all been ministering. He'd given them instructions like denying themselves and things like that before, but you know, they were already relying on the Lord for their daily needs, like food, water, shelter as they traveled, all those sorts of things. They knew how to deny themselves because they had been denying themselves the whole time they'd been with him.
Right.
But what did he mean to take up their cross daily? You know, that had to go, huh?
The lab ears.
Exactly. You know, did he mean that each of them should be carrying around a 10-foot tall Roman cross wherever they went as they walked around? Whoop, got my cross. I'm ready to go. Yeah, splinters and everything, and heavy, and I'm just trying to, I mean, is that what he meant?
Well, you know, that Roman cross, it was quite a gruesome sight.
Yes.
It was a symbol of suffering and shame. It was the sentence for criminals.
Right.
Why in the world would Jesus say this? Well, what does it mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus wanted his followers to be fully committed to his plan for man's salvation and restoration to God.
Right.
There was no room for any selfish ambitions or motives. There was no room for personal time or space.
Right.
There was no identity available other than that of Jesus' follower.
Right. Right.
There was no time for individuality or selfish ambition.
Right. You know, to deny themselves meant to fully give up all of their own dreams and desires, plans and thoughts, hopes and dreams, and then to take on the dreams, desires, plans, thoughts, and hopes of Jesus himself.
Yes.
You know, they had to deny themselves. And they knew that part. They saw that part. This is so difficult sometimes,
Right.
but you know, but they saw that, and we see that. You know, we want to stand up for our rights, though. You know, this is what it's kind of the difficult thing. We want to stand up for our rights. I have the right to whatever.
Right.
We want to stand up for justice, and we want to stand up for what is fair. Yet Jesus tells us to deny ourselves, to deny all of that.
We must put others before ourselves.
Right.
It is not good enough to just put your family and your friends, those you know, before yourselves.
Right.
We must put our enemies before ourselves. In fact, we must put every one of the 7.5 billion people on earth before ourselves.
There's a lot of zeros in that billion. Too.
Yes, there is. But that's not the strange part of what he said.
No.
He then said, after denying yourselves, we must take up our cross daily.
Right.
You see, in that day, it was common for criminals to be forced to carry their own cross to the place of their execution. That was part of the humiliation that the Romans intended to serve as a warning to others. It was this public display.
Right. Well, and that hasn't changed through the ages either. I think of 19th century, well, 16th through the 19th century, all the hangings. I mean, it was
Public
always
hangings,
done in public, and well, actually, executions are always done in public.
Right.
Just one of those things. You know, it's part of the deterrent also.
Right.
But what Jesus was telling his disciples was they need to take on his life.
Yeah.
They needed to live their life the way he was living his. They needed to give up everything he had given up and live life the way he was living life.
Right.
He wasn't saying you need to get yourself a little gold cross and put it on a chain and hang it around your neck.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know.
That'd be so easy.
Yes, it was. Or little gold cross earrings, and all those are great. Don't get me wrong. I think the very first present I ever got to you was for your birthday. You know,
a cross.
forever years ago. Yeah, it was a cross with a gold drape, or with a rose-colored drape on it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And actually, see, I sealed the deal with it. She always said her husband would buy that for her, and so I bought it for her, and then she had to marry me. But that's not what he was talking about. It's not something pretty and shiny and little and identifier mark. No. This is carrying around the shame of Christ.
Right.
This is carrying around the everything that he faced. This is living that life and seeing life as he saw it and carrying that with us.
Right.
You know, this meant they needed to forsake family. their home, their property, and any other comforts of this life, just as he had done. Now, it didn't mean he forsake all this. It didn't mean, if they wanted to come along, hey, awesome. Family wants to come along, awesome. But if they're not, well, he's moving on, because this is where God's leading him.
Right.
And we need to do that. They had to take on the reproach and the scorn of this world. No one has been reproached or scorned more than Jesus.
Right.
And that's part of what he was telling his disciples, and all of us down the line as we read this passage. That's what he's saying, is we had to take on the reproach and the scorn of this world just as he did.
Right. They needed total dependence upon God.
Yes.
They needed to be obedient to the leading of the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
They needed to share a message with people that was not popular and often would find them against the accepted religious and political leaders of that time.
Are we sure we're talking about 2,000 years ago? Because that sure sounds like today.
Yes, it does. They needed to pour out their life for others.
Yeah.
And die to themselves and their own personal place in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had to give up self.
Right.
Completely give up self. Publicly give up self.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I think, that's the biggest thing about take up your cross and follow me, is they had to do these things every day. We need to do things every day.
Yes.
And it's got to be visible.
Right.
You can't be quiet about it. Shh, I'm a Christian.
Right.
I'm giving something up. No, we need to be living transparently, and people need to see that. It's part of the life. And it may sound like kind of a downer, but ultimately it is freeing.
Right.
Because here's the good part. When we do this, as unusual and strange as it sounds, we give up our lives, but we gain Jesus' life.
So much more, right.
We gain Jesus' life.
Yes.
The King of Kings that gave up his kingship to come to earth as a baby, to have to wear diapers and be fed and all those things. Creator of creation gave up all of that, but then ascended back to it. Yeah. That's what we gain by giving up ourselves, by giving up our measly little piece of life that we have of eternity, giving it to him. We gain his.
Right.
We become sons and daughters of God Most High.
Right.
We have a place at the dinner table alongside Jesus as co-heirs of all creation, as his brothers and sisters. It doesn't get any better than that, folks.
That's right.
It does not get any better than that. Exactly. I mean, we're grafted into that vine, and once you're grafted in, there's no re-separating. Right. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen, like, if you graft a tree branch into a tree, or you graft a vine or another plant into a plant? I mean, you can see the grafting at first, when it first happens. But then over time, that goes away, and there's not even a scar. It just kind of grows together. And that's, as we say yes to Jesus and become a part of the family of God, that's exactly what happens. We're grafted into that vine. And then we become inseparable without tearing it out. But here's the thing. This takes a daily decision.
Yeah.
This is not something that you can do once and then you're set for life. It's not a once and done kind of thing.
Because we must daily examine our lives.
Right.
Our motives, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Our actions, and see if they match up with what Jesus is telling us to do.
Right.
Do your daily actions and motives line up with denying yourselves in all things? Taking up your cross and following Jesus? Do you do that in the marketplace as well as at home? Do you do that at school as well as in your neighbor's home? So everywhere you go.
Right.
It is easy to fall into the natural way of looking out for yourself, looking out for number one, right? And allowing routines and inconveniences to sway you away from Jesus.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to go with what you know.
Right.
Rather than doing necessarily what is right.
Right. Right. Yeah. And and going with what we know is really easy sometimes, but that's not always what Jesus is asking us to do. So today we want to encourage you to deny yourself. That's kind of funny. That's kind of funny sounding. We want to encourage you to deny yourself. We want you to take up your cross and follow Jesus publicly. You know, we have a friend that was a youth pastor in a town not too far from here. It was far from us when he was doing this, and we knew him there. But he was a youth pastor in Walla Walla, Washington. I just love Walla Walla. The way it sounds. Anyway, he was a youth pastor there, and for a week, I forget what the reason was, but he did something with his youth group. And for a week, he wore first century clothes, robes and stuff. And he walked from his home to the church daily. And he actually carried a cross with him, a big wooden cross, back and forth. And he had like a 3-mile walk each way and stuff. And he did that every day for a week. And I think it was leading up to Easter, something to do with their Easter and everything else. And it was interesting the effect that had on not just his youth group, but the people in that community. And because he was publicly carrying his cross, he was identifying himself as, yes, I'm denying myself. I'm not driving to and from work. I'm not doing any of that. I'm walking to and from work, and I'm carrying my cross with me daily. And that carrying that cross is identifying himself, taking on the personification of Jesus. And what an amazing impact that had on people. We encourage you to deny yourself. We encourage you to take up your cross and follow Jesus. You will enter your heavenly reward by unashamedly following Jesus in all your ways, in all your actions, and in everywhere you go. Yeah. If you think there's something Jesus said that makes you say, what? We'd love to hear it. Yes. We really would. We would love to hear from you. Just contact us through our website or Facebook. We'll use some of the questions and suggestions, if I can say the word. I needed one less cup of coffee this morning. We'll use some of those questions and suggestions for some future webcasts. But seriously, we want to encourage you to take up your cross and follow him today.
Yes. We love hearing from you. Yeah. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
We're so glad that you stayed with us.
Yeah.
Do us a favor and share this video with your friends on your social networks.
Yeah. Just click share.
If we can pray for you in any specific way, or if you have any questions or praise reports, we'd really love to hear about them. Again, just contact us through our website, Facebook, email, or give us a call.
Yeah, we have our Facebook and Twitter stuff always right there.
Yes. May the Lord bless you and keep you as you continue to serve him each day.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining Cell Life Church Live. We hope you've been encouraged. If this message touched you in some special way and you would like to contact us, you may do so on our Facebook page, website, this YouTube channel, or email. We enjoy hearing how these messages impact your life. Would you consider supporting Cell Life Church financially? Contributions can be made online and are tax deductible in the United States. Details for giving can be found on our website at www.celllifechurch.tv.